How do we take the gifts that you've got, and that is the diamond that needs to be turned into this incredibly valuable diamond.
And we've got such enormous talent in this country, don't we?
Massive.
Such incredible skills. And one of the greatest tragedies is the fact that it's sitting lying fallow.
How to make money is hustling. It is learning who customers are. It is haggling, negotiating. It's being in the space. It's going to the thing. And you've got to seize every opportunity.
And there's a gap between the boardroom and the reality on the ground. There's a gap between the classroom and what's happening on the ground.
Completely.
A gap between the government and what's happening on the ground. And we need to bridge that gap.
The most valuable thing that we've got isn't the gold, isn't this. It's actually our people.
It's our people.
We can look at better environments, but it means we've got to get off our own asses and do it.
Right.
You can't sit and wait for government. It ain't going to happen.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of Dangerous But Good. I have a fantastic guest today, Steve Carver. Been friends for way too long, and Steve is a serial entrepreneur. That's the best way to describe him. Innovator, serial entrepreneur, ideas a minute. And Steve, fantastic to have you.
So lovely to be here and see all of this. It's fantastic.
It's amazing, yeah. It's very hard to keep up with all the stuff that you do, Steve. But I mean, the latest project, well, you've been doing it for a while, is You Can Grow, is just, I mean, let's backtrack a bit, I mean, South African government has let us down horribly. And you're one of those guys who says, well, you know what, we can't rely on the government, we've got to make it happen. So mobilizing citizens and really solving South Africa's issues through entrepreneurialism, innovation, and just bloody well making it happen. And that's what you're all about. I mean, just give us a little bit of background, I mean, without going into too much detail.
So I think a little bit of background is I think I've always loved it, the concept of learning, but I think you don't need to do it in a classroom anymore.
Right.
And I think one of the things is that we've got to look with fresh eyes at what do we need the next generation to learn. Nice. And I think we've all come from a background where there's the glaring elephant in the room. The subject that doesn't get taught at school and universities is called how to make money.
Right.
And we need a Burmaka plan, real, resilient, pragmatic, practical things to help people in our country and families on a very simple thing is and I think we had a miracle with Mandela, but what we haven't had is financial freedom. No. And so our education doesn't teach us how to make money. We've taken an old educational model, and it should have expired with old milk. But the expiry date is clearly stamped colonial industrial era, and we've got to rethink as Africans and really bubble up the ability to be enterprising.
Yes, and
so I think that there is an African thing where I think most of everybody gets into this thing of entrepreneurship is for an individual, but I think what it is actually for maybe the word is wrong in Africa, and maybe the what we should be talking about is a spirit of enterprise.
Right.
And how do all of us celebrate a spirit of enterprise?
I love it. Just bloody well make it happen.
Yeah.
And we've got such enormous talent in this country, don't we?
Massive.
Such incredible skills. And one of the greatest tragedies is the fact that it's sitting lying fallow. It's not actually being used. And how do we unlock that? I mean, tell us a bit about Eden University, because that's something you started a while ago.
Yeah. So I've been incredibly lucky of being able to start and run businesses that went global, etc. And then I realized there's a very interesting thing is how do you prove a very simple concept called education that pays for itself?
Right.
And so I created a green university called Eden Campus in a derelict town called Karatara. We took over a 15-year derelict old age home. I got students from the Eden District Municipality. You had to fail a means test to get in. And we built a crazy university, but it was based on how to make money.
Right.
And so I told the professors, I'm going to pay you in the profits of the student-run businesses. And most of the professors of entrepreneurship ran for the hills. They said, we like it on paper, we don't know how to do it in reality.
They're about the theory, aren't they?
Yeah. And so, we started a whole lot of businesses and built and you gain scars. And I think the more scarred you are, and you gain a hell of a lot of scars. But I think one of the biggest things that happened is this technology revolution of mobile phones.
Right.
And everyone said, we need more of these campuses all over the place. And I realized actually all they're doing is they're thinking like developers and saying, let's build a Roman, Greek building. And I realized that the real diamonds aren't in the buildings, they aren't in the fields, they're young people.
Right.
And if we can unleash their potential, we could put a university on a phone. And so that's been my mission, is how do we do just-in-time learning by TikTok? Fantastic. And how do we look at equipping people? And in the beginning, it was youth. And I was all about how do I create citizens of our country that are assets, not liabilities.
Right.
If you're on a social grant, if you're not healthy, if you're not learning and developing, in fact, you can't have this proudly South African thing.
Yeah. You're taking, not giving.
Yeah, what we need is we need everybody putting into the pot, and making this pot overflow with abundance.
Right.
And the most valuable thing that we've got isn't the gold, isn't this? It's actually our people.
It's our people. And how do we unlock that? How do we mine the talent of the people in South Africa? So, I mean, you're talking about cell phones. I mean, a university in the hand. I mean, that's a fantastic thing. But I mean, how you've been doing a lot of work with tech and with learning and with practical making it happen. I mean, there's no good having a degree or a piece of paper behind your name if you go back home and you're unemployed and you're relying on someone to employ you as opposed to getting out there and making it happen. How do we do that?
Well, the reality is you've got to change the narrative, is there aren't the jobs. So let's stop this job. Everybody loves ticking boxes and all of our legislation. It's all about jobs. But for young people, there aren't jobs. And so what we've got to do is we've got to look at how do we create livelihoods. Yeah. And even a small livelihood is very good. And we learned this in farming. So we took small-scale farmers in Southern Africa. We've been doing a lot of work. And what we realized is that most small-scale farmers are focused because they focus on the beer industry. They're growing barley or hops, or they're growing sugar for sugarcane, or they're growing tobacco. And so we suddenly started to say, well, when we bring financial knowledge, we learned that small-scale farmers don't like being small-scale farmers. NGOs love small-scale farmers. They're people to feel sorry for, and you can have global conferences, but the small-scale farmers aren't invited. The poor are never at the poverty conference, with World Bank, and they're never there. And so what we started to realize is you can't rely on one thing. You've got to build resilience by having at least 8 different revenue streams. If I'm a small farmer, I've got to be doing livestock. I've got to be growing a crop. I've got to be doing bees. I've got to be doing all sorts of things. And you've got to really shake and move.
Right.
And what gets trained very often isn't relevant because those people aren't and haven't been in the trenches.
Right.
And so there's a gap between the boardroom and what happens in the field. And so what we did is we started to realize beautiful policies never trickle down.
Right.
And so what we've got to do is we've got to start bubbling up through people. And so we go into the most impoverished communities and we look for the positive deviants.
Right.
Because I don't know how to solve these.
Yes.
But there are people in every township in this country that have got Cavalli shoes on, iPhones, they're rocking. And all you've got to do is say, how did you make it? Because you've actually led the way. The pathfinders are in these slum economies. And so it's really around how do we unlock slum economies and how do we teach people how to make money that really empowers them. And I realized it wasn't just about youth. Now we're seeing in the Eastern Cape with what's happening with pension and black taxes, we've got pensioners going, we need micro businesses and microfinance. We got to make money. We've built the most beautiful house. It's got columns, but there's no business.
Right.
What brings the money in? Yeah. And so a lot of the work that we do is learning and then being able to create speed and scale with technology.
Right.
How do we get the lessons of positive deviance that are entrepreneurs in those, and how do we get their recipes to everybody? And so that's what we've been doing. So how do we spread it? And we don't create the recipes. The recipes are created by incredible individuals and mainly women.
Right.
And so we're seeing a huge drive of women. And because we learned in farming, I suddenly realized, but the same supply chain and value chain in agriculture is also in our waste economy with a buyback center or a pack shed. And we started to realize, but it's the same common sense we're seeing all over. Can we build that common sense? And so essentially what we've built is a very simple, we call it the 4 S's. And we take families and people that are struggling and all we want to do is make them stable. That's mission number 1.
From struggle to stable.
Exactly. And that is like rocket fuel. You need a lot of rocket fuel to take a rocket to here. It's easier once you're starting to build the momentum. And then it takes different recipes from stable to successful.
Yes.
And then it needs different funding and different recipes to take successful to significant.
Okay.
And significant is where for the first time you've got families giving intergenerational wealth.
Fantastic.
These are the things where your children are taking over your farming business. Your children are taking over your livelihoods. Your grandchildren are starting to come into these. And that's where we start to see this incredible Ubuntu working in enterprise.
Fantastic. So what do we need to do as a country, as a society, as a nation to actually change the narrative and cause that to happen? Because it hasn't been happening on the kind of scale we needed to.
Well, I think what we have is a beautiful boardroom set of rules.
Yeah.
And we work in this formal world. There's a huge amount of paperwork. It's fantastic. Our banks have to fit into this. The only problem is there's a whole nother world called our slum economies or our informal. And so this set of rules don't work here. And we also don't trust each other.
Right.
And so you have the best intention and all of the big, when you look at where the capital in mining sits, in all of the banking, in all of these, they're desperately wanting to create the kind of change.
Right.
They just don't know how to do it.
So how do we bridge that gap?
Well, you've got to learn bottom up. And so this bubble up is actually where it is. It doesn't trickle down.
Right.
It's not top down. And so in many ways, it's actually the disempowerment of power and bringing power to people and families.
Yes.
And so the minute you realize, how do I make my family? And the family is the unit. We have this beautiful word called community. But when you get down to it in COVID, when you realize what it really is families is the human unit. And we've got to focus on families. And so we've done a huge amount on how do we measure poverty, what is poverty, and what are the pathways to prosperity.
Right.
And very often our narrative is also stuck that I'm poor. My color, my caste, where I'm from, all of these things, but nobody's poor in their spirit and their soul. They're just poor in the soup that they're in.
But they've often internalized the concept that I'm poor. So there's a shift that needs to take place in the mind.
We have to create dignity and agency in our own mindset.
Right.
We have to start claiming. And I think this is the work that a lot of what I've seen in your organization with your incredible men is they are claiming their royalty, their heritage, their dignity. And there is a big difference between servility and civility. Whenever the servants, we need to be civil and we need to understand, actually, I can be of service to my community. I'm not diminishing myself or belittling myself. I'm not the servant. I'm being civil and I choose to do these services and run these businesses and actually wake up early and run with the swift.
Right.
The problem is our soup is too slow.
I like it.
Everything that we've got around us is not us. And I can DIY. You can do it yourself. We can change the spaces we live in. We can sort out water, energy. We can look at better environments, but it means we've got to get off our own asses and do it.
Right.
You can't sit and wait for government. It ain't going to happen.
I love this. There's a gap between the boardroom and the reality on the ground. There's a gap between the classroom and what's happening on the ground.
Completely.
A gap between the government and what's happening on the ground. And we need to bridge that gap. So how do we catalyze this change from the bottom up? So what can we do?
I think the revolution is happening and it's very humble.
Right.
And it starts small and it starts slow. And what we find is it's about understanding what is a value chain. And I'll give you a lovely example. In fact, something I learned from you. You taught me about a thing called a chimney. You said every fire needs a chimney. You need to actually pull it into something, else you just got a loose fire. And so what we found if we have value add, and so we developed a little company called the Ugly Vegetable Company. And what we do is we give seed boxes into communities, but we guarantee to buy everything back at a fair price. And that is the most important catalytic moment because everybody's doing food security. There's so many really amazing organizations, but the minute the NGO stops, the project fails.
Right.
You see these white elephants everywhere.
Right.
But instead of putting the money into all of the tools, etc., you put the money into what is the pulling factor that is going to allow people to have sustainable income and livelihoods.
Right.
And so what we found is with the waste industry, a very small solar baler, a buyback center, suddenly is the catalyst to actually get better prices. And it is through commerce, not charity, that these things start to really work. Fantastic. And people go, hold on, I can make pocket money. But you suddenly realize I can get better and my yield can increase. I can make more pocket money. Now suddenly I'm actually starting to get something. But most of us are terrified of pocket money.
Right.
We're terrified of, no, this is no good. That we don't realize pocket money
is the kickstart.
This is the kickstart. And that's your struggle to stable. And how do we get people that are unemployed and the thing that they've got is themselves and time? And so what we find is most people go into a training or a learning program, but there is a level of deceit.
Right.
And so we have fake CVs in every township. We have all of this, and we're missing something very, very important. And we're missing the celebration of the individual because every single one of us, when we understand poverty and we do multidimensional poverty metrics, every family is unique in their own unique way.
Right.
And every individual is unique. But what we do is we tell everybody to line up and do the same thing. And you'll see, I mean, we see this all the time is we see the best intention, but you say, right, who wants to be farmers? Everyone, because there's a learnership or a stipend.
Right.
But actually, not everybody wants to be farmers.
And there's not an opportunity for it. We saw this a lot in some of the government programs. You train someone how to be a carpenter and they got a piece of paper, but there's no opportunity to use the carpentry. So it's got to be pull driven. Hey, what is the demand? What can we actually use? What's the practicality? Don't get a formal education. Get out there and do something that can actually make you money, actually produce a business. And there's tremendous dignity in that, isn't there? There's dignity. I love the concept of agency. Because there's a sense of futility, a sense of desperation. You walk the streets of most poor communities now, you see it lined with unemployed men and gambling, drinking, and a little bit of money, pocket money they might get, they spend on something that makes them look good or anesthetizes the pain. So to change the narrative to say, you can get the pocket money and then you can use that to get to stable. And then from that, you can actually aspire to become more.
Completely.
I think that's so there are many things that need to change. We need to change the soup that we're living in. The government interventions away from getting certificates and ticking boxes and getting bums on seats in training and really get down to the practical nitty gritty of what can that individual do in a poor community to make pocket money, get stable, and then progress.
Completely.
And I love that concept. I love what you're doing there.
So a lot of it is about transformation. A lot of it is about how do we take from this, we're in the business of losing, how do we all get into the business of winning? And so we can learn from sports people, from heroes, from champions. We've got so many of them in every area. And it's about really celebrating those people, but also realizing the technology for the first time ever is giving us a leap ahead because all of a sudden I can do a very, very simple diagnostic, almost like HR or Tinder. And I can ask people, what do you love doing and what don't you love doing? What are you good at? What are you not good at? What gives you stress? What will you procrastinate and not do? And what do I have to pay you to learn? And I can build a profile that now gives me what is the easiest route for that individual to do what they're blessed with. And how do we make them shine and how do we celebrate you by not showing you all those jobs that you're going to fail at and not doing all the training that is just a learnership, but actually how do we take the gifts that you've got and that is the diamond that needs to be turned into this incredibly valuable diamond.
I love that. So many people are looking at how to produce a CV, how to go to Postnet and get a CV that's well written so that I can apply for a job. Instead of saying, well, how can I find something that will make some pocket money so that I can get going?
Absolutely, yeah. So AI is helping us enormously. Big data is helping us enormously because what we find that most people don't see where the opportunities lie. They don't see what the real community assets are. They don't see the opportunities. And so what we're doing is we're taking what are some of the challenges and solving it by micro-franchising. And we're even calling it micro-franchising.
Franchising.
So how do we create proven methods that we know it costs you X and the return on investment is Y? Then there's the next step. So each step that we work on the 4 S's, is around how do we give you micro-learning? How do we equip you to do that? And then it's almost like judo or karate. People start on a white belt, but they can see that's where the black belt is. And you earn the right to take the steps. It's not, it is you earn it.
Right.
Similar to McDonald's, every CEO of McDonald's has gone in at the bottom and they've earned the right. It's not, you don't put a CEO. Same with generals in the army.
Right.
You start here and you all earn and you have the respect of everyone around you. You're not a pop-in. You actually have got this, the muscle that you've learnt. You've taken the pain. You've got the skills, and it is in the muscle memory. So very often it's about how do we teach people how to make money is hustling. It is learning who customers are. It is haggling, negotiating. It's being in the space. It's going to the thing. And you've got to seize every opportunity.
And it's ultimately about providing value, isn't it?
Of course it is.
And one has to know that I have value to provide.
Yeah.
Find a need that needs to be met and let me meet the need. Let me provide. Steve, I want to hear your take. Well, you tell us about the Zama Zama story. It's a beautiful story. The Zama Zamas are got such a terrible name. You know, these are, and you've done something that's transformed the lives of Zama Zamas. Tell us about that.
In Africa, they're called artisanal miners. It's only in South Africa that they're called illegal miners.
Right.
And so there's a whole lot of safety factors that it's important. But what you've got to understand is the human spirit is amazing. And many of these miners are intergenerational miners.
Right.
They were collected from labor providing areas. The human devastation from that in fatherlessness is enormous. But men have come into the mines, and then their sons have come, their grandchildren. And let me tell you, these guys know how to mine.
Right.
They might not have the certificates, but they know exactly what to do. They understand, and they're very efficient. And so we have a reality. We have no employment, and people need to provide. And so very often, a lot of people think it's always foreigners. It's not foreigners. It's people that have mined there intergenerationally. It's a lot more complex in the human story than a simple black or white issue.
Right.
But what we found is that military and policing doesn't always solve the problem. When you understand it's about a livelihood and it's about money, a very passive way is just offering a new pathway.
Right.
Saying, here is above ground seed boxes. We buy what you grow. And it happened very small, and this infection started because every Friday, wheelbarrows come down from the hills full of the most incredible organic vegetables.
So you go to the Zama Zamas, you provide them an alternative. You say, here's how you can grow stuff that we will buy from you.
It's about the money. You know, it's the Jerry Maguire, show me the money. That's where it's at. And it's not free money. This is the interesting thing. It's not
an opportunity to earn money.
Here is a dignified opportunity. Here it is. These are the prices. This is what it is, and it's a business, and we are a business, and we teach entrepreneurs because we're a business. We're not a charity faking our religion by begging and then teaching you to take the hard time. We're in it, skin in the game.
I love it.
And I think this is such an important thing in what we call the invisible curriculum.
Yes.
The invisible curriculum is the real culture or the truth.
Right.
And very often what happens is we have people with fake funding, and then they teach people, but they teach people because they've got a program, but they don't know the cut and thrust of what it really takes to make money and what it really takes to do the right value and to create value that is respected in an impoverished community. And yet we have it every day. Right. We have unbelievable stuff happening in these slum economies. And slum economies are not South African, they're global.
Absolutely.
So this is a global learning that is happening and is bubbling in South Africa. And, you know, we thought, okay, well, our gold always went. And, you know, all of these stuff has gone to feed the kind of the coffers of the rest of the world. But I think what we're finding our spirit of enterprise, which is like a pixie dust. Right. It's the yeast that makes our bread rise, is in the South African spirit.
Right.
And I think that is more valuable than anything. And that Burmaka plan is going all around the world. And it's how do we keep that in our own country, and how do we grow this talent and these diamonds? Because that's what it's about.
Fantastic. I remember I was in the US many years ago, about 15 years ago, and I was invited to do a guest lecture at a university there. And it was a professor of entrepreneurialism. And it was a class on entrepreneurialism. So I went in and I did a talk. And halfway through the lecture, I said, how many of you guys are going to go into your own business? Not a single hand went up. And I afterwards inquired about the professors. I said, how many of you guys, how many of them have actually, not a single one had run a business, and not a single one of their students were going to run a business. I mean, it was a completely theoretical exercise. And I think that's really what you're combating here. You're dealing with people who are survivalists. They have to survive. They have to hustle. There's no formal jobs available. There's no education available. And what they have learned is not really applicable. But there's that pixie dust. There's that magic. There's that South African spirit. There's that Ubuntu. And if we can tap into that and link that to takeoff agreements, to opportunities, the chimney that's pulling, and then actually use tech to put in their hands the university that'll enable them to have a practical business, we're going to see some magic happen. And I mean, what you did with the Zamas, I mean, you're modestly glossing over that, but you've got a whole bunch of Zamas who were really pilloried and really denigrated by society as being these, awful individuals who are now, you've given them the opportunity, shown them how to create a business, and you're buying back from them. And the sense of dignity and the sense of, that community that's developing there is just astonishing.
I think one of the most interesting things that we're seeing is that a lot of people are doing things not by choice, but by desperation.
Right.
The minute you bring choice in and you show people that there is a multitude of choices,
dignity comes.
That is, you suddenly go, hold on, am I looking at my cultural capital? What's happening here is, are we storytellers? Can I make a business from being a storyteller, telling the story of our culture and our cultural capital in tourism and all of these? And some people are born for it.
Yes.
Yet there's zamazammering.
Right.
Some people are born for farming and some people aren't born for farming.
Because they feel there's no choice.
Exactly. So the minute, and what we find that the minute we are giving people choice where they naturally shine,
right,
they have an absolute passion for these things.
They come alive.
That is what gets us from stable to successful,
right,
and successful to significant.
Fantastic.
And so you need this hockey stick to happen. And again, it is when you are in your element, when you are doing the things that you are best for, it doesn't feel like work.
Right.
But when you're doing something because there is no other option, and very often what we find in Africa, small-scale farmers are not farming because they love farming. They have to feed kids.
Right.
And so, it's very different. The minute you get out of that into an opportunity to say, actually, some guys are the best hustlers of veggies. They want to do juices and health things. And
right,
isn't that amazing? Because each of our talents, it takes a village to raise a child.
Right.
And all of a sudden, if we start to realize that this Ubuntu is actually, how do we get the best people in our communities to do this, the best people to do that? Because the more they shine, they create a vacuum and they create that pull in opportunities for others.
So, Steve, I want to ask you to speak to two different groups of people. What would you say to corporates who want to get involved? There's some amazing business people, CEOs, C-suite people who really want our country to succeed. That's the one area I'd love you to speak in to give advice. And the other area is a young man, a young woman sitting in a township, desperate. What advice would you give them? So let's start with the corporates.
So corporates, I think, let's look at this because we're talking about sustainability, and everyone thinks it's climate change or biodiversity collapse, and it is those things. But the biggest thing in this is if your consumers can't afford your brands, we all go down. And so sustainability as South Africans is we can't have poverty. We've got to change the way that our families, our education, and we need a radical shift, not a simple shift. Because sustainability is if nobody can afford your bread or afford your T-shirt or afford any of these things, we're all going down. And so we've got to have this massive uprising and bubble up. And we've got to do it as an alliance together, because it's in that togetherness that we can actually punch it through. So for it's not just about the market, it's actually your ultimate sustainability. For every bank, if you don't and aren't growing your timber of consumers and clients, and if you aren't incubating and accelerating enterprises at the scale we need to, and I think also there's a caveat, because we're seeing more and more about GDP, We've got to create future businesses that aren't damaging our earth and our biodiversity. We've actually got to look at how do we have thriving communities that aren't destroying our rivers. And so this combination of ultimate sustainability and ultimate growth. And we need our sustainability officers with our marketing and growth officers to realize we're all in the same thing.
Right.
And I think that is a massive opportunity for capital. Because actually photosynthesis creates the energy, it creates everything. We then have a love economy that we don't really value, which are the gogos and the mums and the dads and all of these people that do so much. And so we've got to be pulling these together into enterprises. And once you've got a recipe, that recipe can work all over the place.
Sure.
And so we develop hubs. And we're using technology because it's the only way we're going to get speed and scale. But we're using big data analysis. We're using very sophisticated mapping. And knowledge is power. And risk is incredibly important. So we look at risk, we look at revenue, we look at reputation, and we look at regeneration. Those are our 4 R's in our operations rooms that are just every time going, how do we understand and how do we ignite and bubble up at scale? And then for the individual, let's take the young man.
Yeah.
What is interesting is when you know who you are, it fundamentally changes because you want to play to your strengths.
Right.
And when you actually see there's a pathway, most people have got no visibility. And so the minute we share a pathway, you start to see what it takes. And the truth is more valuable than the illusion.
Right.
If the truth says you got to wake up at 4, you got to be there, you got to do that. I want to see the micro jobbing. I need to see the micro learning. You've got to produce a portfolio of evidence. It's tough, it's competitive, and it is that is far more helpful than a grant or something that is driving our business in a downward spiral where we're incentivizing a losing mindset as opposed to what is a proud winning mindset.
Right.
And so I think that it is in many ways unlearning some of our political viewpoints.
Right.
And it is unlearning that maybe it is going to, if it's up to be, if it's going to be, it's up to me.
Right.
And I can't wait and do these. I've got to look at what can I do today? Yeah. What can I learn today? What can I do that is going to help me? And every small 1%, 100 days, you're at 100%.
Right.
And so this is the methodology, and it works.
Yeah.
And so, use technology. We've got platforms, we've got apps, etc. But you're in an environment that is, in one lens, there are opportunities everywhere.
Yeah.
And in the other lens, I have to wait to be invested in. Actually, you don't need to be. We got to get into the alchemy world of you make by spending your time and doing your learning and doing things, and don't wait for the money. Do it
and don't wait for the savior to come and rescue you.
They ain't going to come and rescue.
Yeah.
And so we're waiting for the rescuers, and we were promised that we're going to be rescued.
Right.
They ain't coming.
It's not happening.
We're going to have to start in our families to bubble up. And so it is, you can grow things. It's that, that's what happens. Did you clean up. Make our streets cleaner, safer.
Yeah. There's so much that needs to be done. Did you ever see that experiment that was done by some scientists years ago? They took a large tank and they put a fish in it, a fish-eating fish, basically. And then they put a whole lot of little fish in the fish with this in the tank, and the fish obviously gobbled them all up, and that was fine. And then they took a sheet of glass and they put it in the middle of the tank. And then they put on the other side of the glass a little fish that this big fish would normally eat. And every time the fish tried to eat the fish, it bumped its head on the glass, even though it couldn't see it. And eventually it stopped trying. Then they took the glass out of the tank, and these little fish were swimming around the big fish. And the big fish actually died of starvation, surrounded by fish that it could eat.
Yeah.
But what killed it wasn't any physical barrier. It was a mental belief that so it did not see the opportunity, it didn't see the food. And I think shifting the mindset of people, to see the opportunities that surround them. That's what we got to do.
Yeah.
When the fish can actually say, well, there's so many opportunities, but we don't see them because we've been taught to rely on the government, rely on the savior, rely on a grant. You have to get a job and there are no jobs available, so there's no hope, there's futility. And I think this is key for unlocking the bottom bubble up, isn't it?
Yeah. It's very, very, and what's interesting is we have heroes in every family.
We do.
We have people doing it. And the minute you suddenly see, and it's really about how do we start to run with the swift.
Yeah.
And so mentoring, coaching, having amazing men in our nation standing up and saying no more toxic masculinity.
Right.
How do we stand up and show that we can absolutely create the space that is safe for people to thrive?
Right.
How do we create these ecosystems?
Fantastic, Steve. I know you got to dash off, but man, very inspiring as ever. And there is so much we can do. And what's so beautiful about South Africa is the spirit of South Africans, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wherever you go. I mean, we work in communities, you and I both, and you find heroes wherever you go. That gogo that's raising 15 kids that are not her own. That father that's unemployed, but he's there every morning for his daughters and kids. I mean, they're those heroes. And we need to just praise them, draw them out, equip them, motivate them, incentivize them, and just grow that groundswell up.
Completely.
And we can. I mean, you have a company called You Can.
Yeah.
And I love it. I mean, you can.
Well, the last 4 letters of being African is I can.
Right.
And if I can, you can. If you can, we can. And that is
that's a great note
is
too.
the infection we need all of us to realize we've got it in us anyway.
Fantastic.
It's just unleashing the human spirit.
Fantastic. Just to end off, what to take out of that is that this is a country of enormous opportunity, of enormous wealth. And the wealth of our country is not the gold or the diamonds. The wealth in our country is our people. It's that Ubuntu, it's that spirit, it's that incredible intellect. It's the ability to make it happen. And we have people who have money and have means and businesses that are still here, and they're rooting to make this a great country. And the word to you is, man, let's make it happen. Let's not make it happen theoretically. Let's make it happen on the ground. And the word to those on the ground who are struggling, who have a sense of futility, man, you've got what it takes. There's so much in you and there's so much opportunity. So let's break out and let's cause the top to meet the bottom and the bubble up to happen and South Africa to become a great country. So Steve, thank you, brother. This is awesome.
Fantastic. Thank you, Craig.
Nice and chilly, guys.
Hi there, Craig Wilkinson, Force for Good, what used to be called Dangerous But Good. Here on a very chilly morning, chilly Friday morning, Kromdraai, the cradle of mankind, with some very good friends of mine, Steve and Tony. We had an interview with Steve on the podcast and just talking about how he's getting involved in communities, getting involved in transferring people from poverty to prosperity. And this is a phenomenal story. And what he's done is he's brought a business model to them around agriculture, and he's helped individuals transform from being zama-zamas into being small farmers, and they're guaranteed to buy back whatever is made. We're going to talk to some of the ex-zama-zamas who are now farmers and the way that this has transformed their lives. So fantastic to be with you, and we're going to take a walk around shortly.
So this is the cradle of humankind, which is the birthplace of humanity. And we've got an incredible place, but we've also got our reality of South Africa. And so we've got slums and illegal miners, which are zama-zamas. And instead of coming in with police and military, we've tried a different pathway, and that is a poverty to prosperity pathway. So we give seed boxes to every family. Those families then grow. We have a little business called the Ugly Vegetable Company, and we guarantee to buy all of the produce that they do. And it started very, very small until people realized that making money is the pathway to sustainability.
We are more based in our communities, trying to build the ecosystem, supplying each and every household, because of each and everything starts with people. From people, it's family. From family, it's community.
What happens here once a week is we do what's called a community buyout, and we track using our app out of You Can Grow, and we locate every allotment and every field that every farmer's done, and we buy their produce, It then goes to our pack shed, and from our pack shed it goes to the culinary center, it goes to various restaurants and hotels, it goes to food lovers.
So here it's our scale together with our cell phone, whereby everything that we do, we try to make sure that it's on track because of, remember, we are building regenerative agriculture. It's a must that we know where our food comes from. So we use the app to trace people and then also to buy from them. We buy a lot of chili from the community and then we turn it into a chili sauce so that we can sell it to our tourists. Here we are having our starter pack box, whereby inside you got different types of veggies. It can supply you for a period of a year, and then you can always maintain a hectare. And then inside you got the microorganism capsule, whereby we enrich the soil instead of taking from the soil. Because of most of the farmers, they usually take from the soil, they don't give to the soil. So we play a huge role of giving back to the soil.
And so it is an empowering journey that starts in the soil but builds dignified livelihoods.